Hello, my name is Rose Duane, and this is my Applications of GIS 1 final project. And this project is the assessment of settlement sites along the Maine coast. So here's our scenario. Researchers at the University of Maine have reached out to us and asked us to acquire GIS data related to natural resources and access to natural resources, and to analyze potential settlement sites along the Maine coast. These researchers have a strong interest in both seeing where the natural resource, primarily are located and how it aligns with identified shell midden sites to see how resource access potential and actual, identified settlements align. So what resources are we looking at? The majority of our resources we have pulled are from the Maine Geo Library. So this is from the Maine state government, and it has a great resource with both natural and not natural, so aquaculture or sewage systems, drainage data. And from the Maine Geo Library, we have acquired data from all of these. Deer wintering areas, so these are areas where deer are highly active and they settle down in winter months. So there would be a large deer population there. Maine heritage fish waters, these are lakes and ponds across the state of Maine that have been stocked with heritage fish, so trout, char, or landlocked salmon. And this not only gives us a little bit of insight into a freshwater resource, but also, more more food source with the fish. We're also looking at the waterfowl tidal habitats. So waterfowl, that could be geese, ducks, loons. And since we are analyzing the Maine coast, we want to be able to see where they're distributed along the ocean and the tides. If we were analyzing the deep woods, we would also include data from inland habitats for waterfowl. We also have eelgrass distribution. This gives us insight, and eelgrass is important because it is a primary food source for a lot of fish, and it's an important habitat for small fish. So when you are in an area and there's a great deal of eelgrass abundance, you're going to have higher productivity in the water, and you're also going to have more availability as for food. We also have salt marsh habitat mapping and sea run fisheries. So, more just here are where the food sources are, here highly productive areas. And yeah, so next. First off, let's take a look at our map first. This first map is kind of a geographic, area, and this is a raster data set downloaded. This was a public data set that kind of gives the elevation across, North America. And we are more interested in Maine, so let's go back. So here we have the Maine state boundary lines, and here we can see our area of interest. And particularly, we have a strong area of interest down here, and this can be divided into ecoregions. So what are ecoregions? Ecoregions is an ecosystem classification within small geographical areas. So, the Northeast would be kind of classified as its own biota area based on the fact that it snows up here. It's really cold. It's colder than, say, the mid-Atlantic. But within New England, Maine is wildly different. Maine has a wildly different ecosystem base than a state like Massachusetts. So we classify Maine into ecoregions, and it's based on ecological biota and geologic features. And so Maine has 7 identifiable ecoregions, mainly the coast, as well as deep woods, and over here, the mountains. And the coast of Maine is divided into 3 ecoregions. So we have southern Maine, we have central interior / mid-coast right here, as well as down east. And this is important information to have in our analysis as, we take our information, what we know about southern Maine. There's a lot of sand beaches, there's a lot of salt marshes. It's a very, very highly productive area, but it is wildly different from mid-coast, which is primarily pine trees and very rocky, a lot of glaciated areas, and up down east it gets a little bit less rocky than over here, but it is still very, very rocky and very, very, carved into, as you can see by this outline. And when you click on these ecoregions, it just gives you information. This ecoregion information was also obtained by the state of Maine GIS department, and it kind of gives you information around the acreage as well as just labeling what these areas are. So then we'll switch over to our resource data map, and this is everything we are interested in seeing kind of mapped out, and you can see very, very abundant down here just based on what we're interested in seeing compared to the northern interior of Maine. And we'll go back. So along with these resources that we wanted to see, another resource that would be very important to have would be able to identify farmland within the state. But the only downside to that is that the map was it had a lot of data attached to it. And so even if you circled this teeny tiny little mid-coast area, there was about 150,000 data sets just in this. And there was close to around 500,000 data sets in the entire state of Maine. And so 150,000 data sets, it was a little bit too much for this application system to handle. But as we can see, this is Penobscot Bay, and you can see Searsport up here, Penobscot right there, and up here would be Bucksport. And right here is down Rockport, Camden, Rockland, more familiar areas. There is quite an abundance of farmable land, so I don't think that having access to farmland is necessarily a limited resource, so we can definitely say that these areas would be highly productive, not just for being able to hunt and gather, but also for agricultural purposes. And the reason we can assume that a lot of this is farmable land because of, colonial settlement into the area, whereas this is all deep woods, and this is primarily logging areas too, as well as over here. So yes, that is why that is not included onto this map, although it would be a great resource to actually include in future analyses. So we will look at, we can kind of zoom in a little bit. Oh, nope. Zoom in the other way. There we go. And so it is interesting to see how the natural resource areas, so, you can see in the red salt marshes, and over here in the orange is the waterfowl habitats, how they align with highly populated areas. And so before I put any of the data into this map, I had a hypothesis that the best area for settlement would be this western shore area of Penobscot Bay, because the Penobscot Bay is a very important, not just like cultural resource, but natural resource as well. People, pre-colonial people, indigenous people, they would settle down here in the summer, and because Penobscot Bay watershed goes way up here, there would be summer settlements up here, and then winter settlements way up north. So I had initially thought that that would be the the best area for settlement, and it is. I mean, we have deer areas, we have waterfowl areas, as well as these anadromous fish runs, which are incredibly important. This is a great food resource for people to have. I'm so sorry. I live right by a very busy road, if you heard any of that. And it kind of aligns with Acadia National Park as well. So here are more areas. The GIS, highly productive. All of this, I would say Acadia is probably the most productive area. Maybe let's get rid of the waterfowl. Yeah. Now, I also thought that this area would be the best as well, just because, you know, you have the southern part of Maine. It is highly populated, and there's no doubt that it was also probably, you know, very populated 2,000 years ago. But seeing this, I probably wouldn't be settling much, especially within the Camden area, Belfast and Bucksport, maybe a little bit of Rockland, just because there are the salt marshes. But yeah, no doubt, if you have ever been to this area, Goldsboro, Winter Harbor, this is all still part of Acadia National Park right here. And this is just, you know, gorgeous protection. So makes sense how all of these align with, you know, current settlement sites. And it'd be interested, you know, this is modern data, but it'd be interesting to see how it matches up with, you know, research papers that kind of look at natural resource distribution, you know, 2,000 years ago. Right. So, going into shell middens. What are shell middens? They are essentially pre-colonial landfills. And so we have a shell midden right here. You can see it's a bunch of shells, as one could predict. And so these are giant mounds that we find in the modern day, and they're essentially where indigenous people would dump food waste, you know, mollusk shells, crustacean shells. Sometimes they would even dump like mammals and bones and clay, pottery. There could be, you know, fire, ashes in there. So it kind of, as well as just, you know, food items, it encompasses everyday items. You can find what people were doing 2,000 plus years ago through these shell midden sites just by, you know, digging through them. It's quite fascinating. And so these shell midden sites are scattered all across the coast of Maine. They are a very important protected cultural resource for Wabanaki people. So there's an estimated 2,000 shell midden sites along the coast of Maine, but you know, as far as locations, it's a little bit difficult for a not authorized person to be able to access where these sites are. So why are they important for this work that we are doing? These shell midden sites give us not just context into people, what people were eating and doing in their everyday lives, but they give important clues as to where human settlement would be back before colonial settlement into the state of Maine. And so there are two huge shell midden sites, you know, publicly known and protected, and you know, they have parks dedicated to them. So the first one is Whaleback Shell Midden Site in Daramuscata, Maine, and we will come into here, and these there was no GIS data publicly available. Oh, I keep doing that. About these shell midden sites, so I had to go ahead and create a vector set just to show you where it is. So this little diamond right here, here's the town of Daramuscata, and we can kind of see it's a little more protected. This is a huge brackish river, and so this is more of a protected area, and so we can, and so although Shell Midden sites, this was the landfill, so it's likely that, your what's your town or your settlement wouldn't be directly next to your landfill. It'd be a little bit of ways, but it would still have to be close enough that you would want to be able to have easy access to it. And so being able to see where salt marshes and eelgrass is available, this would kind of probably be very soupy to set up sites. So we can probably make the assumption that Native people once settled down here or over here, or maybe they would take their canoe across the river and they really liked the Newcastle area. And we also have the Holmes Point Shell Midden site in Machias. So we'll zoom back out and we'll go north and then zoom back in. There's East Machias and there's Machias. All right. Oh, there we go. So here is our other Shell Midden site. As you can see, highly productive areas with eelgrass and salt marshes. I never turned but yeah, also abundance of access to waterfowl, which was a great food source as well. So we can see here, this area, keep on zooming in. So highly, highly productive area. Knowing that this site is right here and seeing that this is salt marsh, that's salt marsh up here. This is probably all very, very muggy as well. So a potential settlement site would be down here on these mountains, as well as potentially, maybe not that island, but definitely on these higher elevation areas. All right, and so as you can see on this map when I zoomed out, we had our two very important sites, but there's this little conglomerate of points right here. So who and where are these points? Well, we have Acadia National Park right here, a well-known settled area for indigenous Wabanaki people. Making sure this is still recording because I'm going a little bit over time. But this is data from a research paper. Whoop. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is data from a research paper I found, and this is Shell Midden sites from a 1941 excavation, and this was conducted by the Abbey Museum, which is in Bar Harbor. This is information that was not public, but was made public by a researcher who was doing work on these sites. So you can see Shell Midden site, shell heaps, also what it's called, and they each have their own names. And I inputted this data all myself, and so it makes sense. Highly, highly productive areas. Settlement definitely over here. Quite possibly settlement down here and up here. And they probably even, if there was, maybe there wasn't settlement up here, but they probably took canoes and just traveled over here, would dump them off, and then go back to Mount Desert Island, which is absolutely a well-known settlement site for pre-colonial Wabanaki people. All right, so with this work, there's a lot that could be improved upon with this map. We'll go fix that again. There we go. So there's still a lot of data that could be added to this map. So I would, in future work, try to minimize and refine and incorporate the farmland data from the Maine state government into this map so we can kind of see where agricultural sites could also be included. We would also create a data set that incorporated surface water access. I was unable to find any publicly accessible surface water. So, either from Penobscot or Carrabassett River, which are highly productive, freshwater sources. And there's quite a few freshwater sources on Mount Desert Island. So that'd be interesting to see where the freshwater sources are in relation to these maps. I would also like to consult Maine archaeologists and inquire about additional shell-midden sites and see, because I'm sure there's a large scattering of them, especially in this area. And so a future question to incorporate with this work as well would be, what does natural resource distribution look like in the deep woods? And how would resources differ between winter and summer? So, additionally, as well as looking at the coastline, what do the natural resources look like up here? Where would Wabanaki people go when they would go up into the high north? That would be very interesting to see, and that is definitely a potential way to keep working on this project. Well, all right. Thank you very much, and enjoy your break.